The reason why I first started protecting myself many years ago was the fear of entities. Unfortunately, I was not living a simple situation, as some very strong presences were keeping me awake every night and influenced my life. However, I'm thankful for all those past events because they pushed me into learning psychic protection. They made me train to improve it and discover that there are much higher levels than we can imagine. Over the years, I have learned that the protection doesn't only shield oneself from entities, but also protects from negative people and events that can affect anyone, sometimes randomly. At times, we receive attacks that were specifically meant to hurt us, while at other times, we just happen to be affected by events that were not meant for us, but still, we find ourselves suffering, even though we did nothing to deserve them. There are many reasons why we should protect ourselves daily, and we get it if we don't. But in this lesson, I would like to explain how to protect yourself from entities and the reason why you should do it. Entities are free to enter any unprotected house, because there is no psychic barrier preventing them from coming in. They do not respect human rules because they don't have any reason to. So they don't stop in front of closed doors or no entry signs. They can go anywhere, and they influence the places where they go. The belief that entities exist only in abandoned houses, therefore haunted, and that they do not move from there, makes us think that there is no way that there could be one or more presences in our house or in the places we hang out at. That's because our conceptions are based on a completely wrong idea of entity. In fact, we are convinced that if there are no frequent poltergeist events in a house, i.e. self-moving objects or doors slamming violently, then there is no presence that could hurt us in any way. We even think that if there is an entity that doesn't slam doors or move any objects, then it is a good one, and therefore it's harmless. Unfortunately, this is very far from reality. The presence of entities always causes problems, unless they are really good entities, really positive and bright ones, so that their presence cures you and solves your problems, which is very rare. Otherwise, their presence brings havoc and influences, which lower your energy and health. A psychic protection can block their energetic influences and keep them away from you, whether they are ghosts of people who lived in that house in the past and who you might believe to be harmless just because they have never been violent, or whether they are larvae or more threatening entities. Unfortunately, even the entities that we believe to be neutral influence us, just like people do. People influence us, and even if they are not negative, they often lower our energy, bringing us back to a low vibration. The problem is that on most occasions, entities, even the quiet ones, influence us with their energy and can cause problems to our health, our emotional life, and even to our daily choices by making them more negative. To make it simple, the entities that live in a house generally bring a lot of energetic havoc, including bad luck. Even if you don't realize it, entities have a big influence on your thoughts, feelings, and moods. Sometimes you might think that you have very good reasons to be nervous or sad, but these emotions are often induced by their presence. Most people don't see entities because they haven't developed their energetic side. Therefore, many of them will believe that there is nothing in their house, and yet something could be there. As already mentioned, in some houses you can find ghosts that have been there for a long time, but this doesn't mean that other houses can be haunted as well. Ghosts, larvae, shadow people, all of them can move from a place to another and show up in a house that does not belong to them. It makes no sense for a ghost to show up only in the old house where it used to live when it was still alive, as most entities move around as they like. They're not stuck in just one house. They can get around a lot. Let's give a typical example of grandparents protecting their grandchild. In many cases, when the grandchild has a beautiful relationship, either with one of the two grandparents or with both, you can often feel their presence even though they passed away. You might have often heard someone say that they feel protected by their grandparents and that sometimes in their house they can feel their presence. Sometimes it's just a feeling, but many other stories are true. This is just a simple but typical example that shows how even the most recently disembodied people who do not have much experience in this new dimension can move from one house to another with no limits. In fact, the grandchild can feel the grandparent's presence even in his own house, and not necessarily when going to his grandparents' old house. Entities can move, especially shadow people, who are much more wandering kind of entities and have no problems moving from one place to another, which they do very often. While some ghosts prefer to stay most of the time in their old house, other entities, such as shadow people, do not bind themselves to a specific place. Some of them, in fact, inhabit it only as long as it suits them, which means until they find proper nourishment and comfort here. As soon as they feel that the place is no longer suitable for them, they leave and change their home. Having one or more shadow people in the house is not good at all, because they bring problems, discomfort, bad moods, even behavioral outbursts. So much has to change the character of the people living in the house, making them mentally unstable. It happens suddenly. In fact, no one notices the moment when the entity gets into the house, because most people are not able to see them. Starting from that moment, it will influence those people's mood and health, often bringing them quite serious family and life problems. Many entities are not poltergeists, in the sense that they do not move objects or make any noise. So if you are not perceptive at high levels, you will never notice their presence, not even in years and years of cohabitation, unless they are the ones who want to get noticed, and therefore show themselves or make noises that lead you to grow suspicious. Otherwise, you will never notice anything, but that does not mean there is no presence. Some presences are even more silent, like the small larvae that you cannot see or feel, but that manage to get inside people's auras, or even worse, in their bodies, and cause them very strong pains and sometimes illnesses. If you have a permanent pain, such as a continuous pain in one knee, one hip, one shoulder, a specific area of back, which sometimes moves from one point to another of your back, then you should pay more attention to this topic and read carefully all the articles concerning entities. Regardless of whether you have experiences with larvae, ghosts, shadow people, and other kinds of entities, or you have never lived any kind of situation that made you suspect their presence, it is always good to protect yourself psychically and, above all, to protect your house. This way, you will avoid that someday an entity carrying low vibrations or a negative one enters your house, because even if it's only passing by, it might affect you and the people who live there. The fact that you have never seen or heard anything in particular does not mean that they cannot get close to your home or that they cannot get close to you while you are in other people's houses, where there might be presences even though you can't see or hear them. They can also be in your friends' or relatives' homes, even in the house where you spent all your childhood. But if of course you had not developed your sixth sense, you had never noticed their presence. Therefore, when you go to their places, the presence of entities can influence you and change something within you, like your mood, your thoughts, or even worse, your health. When you go back home, you won't understand why, and you certainly won't realize that it was an entity's fault. But you will blame it on something else, for example, on what you ate or on the stressful workload of the day before. Any excuse is good to prevent you from noticing the real reason you feel that way, and this will go on even after you come back home. In fact, it is going to continue for a long time. Even if you cannot see them, entities are there and affect people's moods, thoughts, choices, and health much more intensively than you think. For example, in hospitals, there are many larvae which move from person to person, stealing energy and causing them health problems. If you have often gone to the hospital just to accompany someone, so not because of your own health problems, you may have noticed that although you felt good before entering the building, when you left, you felt tired and empty, as if someone or something had stolen all your energy. This happens because sick people steal a lot of energy from passers-by, but also because in hospitals there are many entities and many larvae that do just the same thing. If you left the hospital with some aches, even though you came in as a companion and not as a patient, doubt might have crossed your mind, but as usual, you wanted to ignore your higher instinct. Moreover, if you work in a hospital or in a similar place, it is even worse because you're subject to these influences every single day and not just occasionally. So do not believe that your energy gets used to them, because every day you are influenced and vampirized more and more until exhaustion. It is no coincidence that those who work with sick people often end up getting sick themselves, even if with different diseases. They do not get sick because the patients infect them with their physical illness, but because patients steal a lot of energy from doctors and nurses, who, sooner or later, will have an energetic collapse that will lead them to mental or physical disorder. By mental disorders, I do not necessarily mean the highest level, that of insanity, but also very deep sadness, constant moodiness, and similar pathologies, which end up bringing considerable emotional problems. The solution is not to stop helping people in need or to stay away from them for the fear of being infected, especially because we are not talking about contagion here, but vampirization or stolen energy or energy influences. To avoid negative energetic influences, there is no need to isolate yourself from the world and stay away from any human being, because this does not prevent entities from taking advantage of your loneliness to eat you even harder. The solution is to protect yourself. In fact, you cannot run away from energetic influences and from people or entities that steal your energy, but you can prevent them from doing so by building a strong psychic protection that would always defend you, especially because you don't know when the worst moment is about to come. It will keep on protecting you non-stop. We get the worst influences when we least expect them, since we don't have to work in a hospital to get a larva. You could catch it while shopping at the supermarket, queuing next to a person who is himself a victim of larvae. And if your energy is poorly protected, it is easy for them to move from that person, who has already been vampirized enough, to you, a new good nutrition. Some people want to believe that if you have good energy, and especially if you are healthy and have bright energy, the larvae will be even more attracted to you. The truth lies in the middle, because the larvae are not attracted to those who have very positive and bright energy, but they simply seek nourishment, and they do not go looking for it in people who are sick or who are dying, because they would have very little to feed on. You want to get fresh food from the supermarket too, rather than expired meat or rotten vegetables. So you choose the freshest vegetables and meat and try as much as you can to eat the best possible food. The larvae obviously prefer a fresh meal, so they look for people who have energy they can feed on. They feed themselves to the point of making people sick and lacking in energy. They stay in them until they find a better victim. They may not find one soon and continue to feed on one person as long as they can, sometimes until the end of their lives. However, this does not mean that the healthier and brighter the person is, the more he attracts larvae, because otherwise, what should you do? Get sick and have low energy so that you don't attract them? It makes no sense. Bright energy does not attract larvae, quite the opposite. But it is normal that, like cowards, indeed they are called larvae, they long to get close to people who contain more energy and from whom they can get a better nourishment. However, this is very different from attracting larvae. In fact, the more a person is in good health and full of positive, bright energy, the more he attracts positive experiences and events. These are very important reasons why we should protect ourselves and practice strong protections on ourselves continuously to prevent larvae, negative entities, and people or low vibrations from affecting or stealing our energy. Protecting yourself is important so that when you go to places where they steal even more energy from you, you will not get overwhelmed. You should never underestimate the protection on your home either, as it is fundamental for your health, both mental and especially physical too. As already mentioned, don't believe that one's home is free from presences, even from the smallest larva, just because you are not able to see them. In addition, it may also be true that an entity such as a ghost never entered your house. They, and especially other kinds of entities, larvae, shadows, etc., can enter at any time in the future, even after years and years, and for various reasons. Sometimes, unfortunately, the entities themselves come into your home uninvited. They happen to like the place and therefore decide to stay. Some other times, they follow you from the outside, from places you have visited, and they come into your house with you. On other occasions, they follow other people who come to your house, bringing entities along with them. So you never know the reason why you find yourself under an entity's influence or vampirization, but still it happens, and this should not scare you, but motivate you even more to protect yourself. In fact, protecting yourself cannot hurt you, but sleepless nights and days full of obsessions and fears surely do. Thus, you have nothing to lose but only to gain if you decide to psychically protect yourself from presences and from whatever is negative for you. You have no reason to be afraid and to feel intimidated, but you have so many reasons to protect yourself every day. So let's move on to the practice. I want to teach you the psychic protection that will shelter you and your home from the presences and therefore from any kind of entity's influences. I suggest you sit comfortably with your back straight and follow the directions I will give you step by step. It will take about 25 to 30 minutes. Start to relax, to feel at peace, and don't have any expectations on what is about to come. Just stay calm and relaxed. Take a deep breath and start summoning white energy all around you. Visualize the white prana coming close to you. Concentrate on attracting the purest energy, with the intent that it hastens to approach you. It must be a lot. Feel the positive energy and the wellness that its presence brings along. Feel safer in its presence. You know it is here to make you stronger. Now visualize the white prana that begins to take shape around you, the shape of a bubble. Breathe deeply. This bubble, about 1.5 meters wide, contains you, surrounds you, and protects you completely. Breathe prana inside of you. Summon prana on the outside of the bubble to strengthen its layer and make it impenetrable. Concentrate on the resistance of the bubble. You must feel it hard, solid. It cannot be overcome. Imprint the intent that no presence of any kind can approach you and influence you with its energy. Make the bubble harder, stronger. Nothing can pass through it. As you well know, this protection is made of prana, so fill it with even more prana. Call white energy into the bubble to fill it up completely. Fill the entire bubble with white prana and make sure it doesn't have any empty spots. Inside, There is only you and a great amount of white prana. Feel the white prana filling up the bubble and leaving no room for any kind of presences, not even larvae or other small beings that steal your energy. Feel them swept out of your bubble and forbid them to come in. Breathe prana inside of you and relax. Focus now on your home. Summon white prana all around your house. Call even more prana, a lot more than you have done up to now. Visualize the white prana approaching your house and surrounding it. Call more white prana and start giving it a shape. Shape it into a bubble that surrounds your house completely. The bubble must be about 2 meters large in each direction beyond the house. Visualize the bubble taking shape and becoming more solid, 2 meters above the roof, 2 meters under the floor to protect the house also from influences coming from the ground. 2 meters from the back of the house, 2 meters from each side of the house. Focus on the whole huge bubble, which must contain and protect the entire house. Now visualize it brighter, stronger, and more solid. Focus on the bubble. Make it stronger, more solid, with the intent that it cannot be overcome. Breathe prana inside of you. Now summon prana around the bubble so that its protective barrier becomes more compact, more decisive. Now let's go inside the bubble. Call white pranic energy inside the house. Call as much prana as you can. Summon bright energy with the intention of filling up the house and expand it throughout the entire surface of the house, in every room and every direction, including the bathroom, the room you use the least, and the basement. Call even more white prana inside the house and expand it in all directions. Feel the energy cleaning the house, protecting and revitalizing it. Call more prana and expand it throughout the house with a more precise intent. It must push all sorts of energetic presences out of the house. Feel the white energy becoming abundant. Expand it throughout the house, and in the meantime feel it pushing like a strong glass barrier. Feel it throwing out every kind of presence and entity out of the house. From the center of the house, cast this energy even more strongly towards the outside of your home, driving away any kind of entity which might be there. White energy prevents entities from entering the house. Feel it and be firm about this intent. Now fill up the house with white energy. Fill it to the brim. The house must overflow with bright and positive energy, which must keep the house protected and impossible to penetrate. Shift your attention to your room only, the room you sleep in, and fill it up with prana, with an even greater intensity, pushing away any kind of presence. Make the protection stronger, especially in your bedroom. Focus again on the outside of the bubble. Reinforce it with white prana, with the intent that no entity can cross it and enter your house. Feel confident about that, because the bubble can be much stronger than you think. make it capable of preventing any entity from overcoming the barrier. No one can enter your house. For the last time, fill the bubble up from the inside, then call prana inside the house and increase it even more. Expand it everywhere with the intent to throw out any kind of entity. Now, reinforce the outer barrier of the bubble so that it protects your home from the outside for at least 2 meters in each direction. Breathe prana and relax. Breathe deeply. And relax. Welcome back from this protection against negative entities and presences. I hope you felt the power that this protection can have on your home. So now you just have to practice it much more often. In today's lesson, I taught you the detailed technique, but when you have little time, you can reduce this technique to 5 minutes of practice. But when you can, I suggest you practice it longer. Even if we have not stated it clearly, the psychic protection protects you from negative entities, or at least from their intent to hurt you. But obviously, it will not drive away any bright and good presence, because your bubble does not consider them as enemies. Hence, you have nothing to fear. The bubble will work much better than you think, because it will be able to understand who vibrates at its same vibration, therefore a positive one, and who has a lower vibration instead, therefore negative, and prevent it from entering. The more you practice, the more you'll be sure that the protection works great. For this reason, I suggest you practice it at least once every day, for a minimum of 5 minutes every time. If possible, practice it more often than this, for example twice a day or even only once, but dedicating it a few more minutes. You will notice big differences. When you don't have much time, dedicate at least 5 minutes to the protection, but do not neglect it, because it can protect you from much more damage than you can imagine. Remember not to underestimate its presence, believing that it is enough to practice occasionally to prevent any entity from accessing your home or influencing you from a distance. Practicing takes a little time, but it avoids problems that would have taken a lot more to be solved. Let me know through a comment here below how your practice was, how you felt during the technique, and which step allowed you to feel the strongest protection. I will be happy to read any experience on this practice. To learn more about us, you can visit our website dimensionalconsciousnessacademy.com. See you soon.